Bioshock is one of my all-time favorite video games. Its world and level design is still to this day one of the most immersive game universes I've had the pleasure of experiencing. It's just oozing with character, mixed in with a great story that has minimal cutscenes leaning more into environmental storytelling, serviceable first-person shooter gameplay, and complete wonder and curiosity to create this strong sense to want to learn more about why we're here, what happened to this dystopian underwater metropolis, and how the hell are we to escape. System Shock, which is Bioshock's predecessor, paved the way for one of the most recognizable FPSs in the genre. It took the risk of ditching the immersive sim elements that System Shock was known for in order to focus more on the world presentation and design along with the game's combat system, and this worked. Bioshock is truly one of a kind, and even after almost 20 years, I haven't managed to come across another story-driven, single-player, first-person shooter that's made me feel the same way. Now, there have been games that have released in this time that clearly take inspiration from Bioshock, Singularity, Prey, or Atomic Heart, and while these games do a good job within their own merits, they still don't quite reach the heights that Bioshock offered. For me personally, anyway. Right now, we're waiting for Bioshock 4, which has been in development since 2019, though fans are skeptical as a completely new team is responsible for this without Ken Levine, the director of Bioshock 1 and Infinite. However, I do have hope, as Bioshock 2, even though yes, it's the weakest of the games, was still a phenomenal time and was developed outside of Irrational Games without Ken Levine. We also know that Ken Levine is working on his own Bioshock spiritual successor Judas with his own studio, which is arguably more exciting than a Bioshock 4. There has, however, been a project that I've been keeping an incredibly close eye on for the past 2 years now, known as Twisted Tower, a Bioshock-inspired indie game where you take one look at it and you think, wow, this is quite possibly the most Bioshock-looking game I've seen outside of Bioshock, maybe aside from Judas. And on my quest to find a video game that gives me an inkling of the same feeling and experience I got from Bioshock initially, this game right here kind of is the closest I feel like I've come personally to capturing that Bioshock vibe. I have to give my flowers to Mundfish, the guys behind Atomic Heart, because I did get the Bioshock DNA as I was playing through that game. Even though that game definitely does have some blatant issues, it really is a nice Bioshock-inspired project. Twisted Tower, though, really is coming from a very small team who are passionate about Bioshock, and just playing through this right here is very telling of that. The team is only about 5 people, so it's incredibly small. The game's been in development for the past 3 years, and Thomas Brush is the project's lead. He's actually got quite the sizable YouTube following where he talks about video game development. I'll leave his channel in the description down below. But what's more is Thomas actually hosts a podcast where he talks with known figures within the video games industry, and one of his guests was none other than Ken Levine, the director of Bioshock 1 and Infinite, and within that podcast, he actually endorses Twisted Tower. So it's got the official Bioshock stamp of approval. Now, I actually got the chance to try out a demo for Twisted Tower in December of last year. However, it's only a week ago that the public demo was released over on Steam. So right now, you can play about 30 minutes of the game to get a good idea as to what's going on here. The game's still very much in development, so things will improve. In Twisted Tower, you play as a guy called Tiny, whose girlfriend has left him for financial opportunities at the Twisted Tower, a mysterious theme park in the middle of the ocean somewhere, I think. So the game's premise is going to Twisted Tower to find your girlfriend, as seemingly this is not a financial opportunity, more so she's been kidnapped, and we'll have to make our way through the various floors of the tower in order to save her. The game jumps into things straight away, very quickly, very much like Bioshock. The game sets up a very basic exposition, explains why we're in the location we're in, and from here we're left to our own devices to explore this really bizarre location and the environment environment guide us along the way. It's definitely the Bioshock method of storytelling, and I feel like the devs have adapted that here in this game. Now, where Bioshock takes us to an abandoned dystopian city at the bottom of the ocean, or a city high up above the clouds, Twisted Tower takes us to a tower that is a theme park that has seemingly been abandoned. Something has gone wrong here, and all of its inhabitants are crazy mascot people. The atmosphere of this game is great, and I feel like that's one of the key things to nail if you're trying to make something that goes along the lines of Bioshock. I think that's the most important aspect of the Bioshock games. It has that scary, spooky, bizarre, and quite eerie feeling to its environments. This game's world is set in the 1940s, very similar to Bioshock, so all of the world's decor, architecture, and furniture is very retro. Art Deco can also be seen throughout the level design, another important little Bioshock DNA thing here, as Bioshock's level design had a strong Art Deco influence, as around the 1950s, this was a really popular style. But because Twisted Tower takes place within a theme park, it means that the various floors that you explore are going to be different. Now, in the demo, you only get to see the welcome lobby area and the first floor. And theme park level design can work quite well with spooky atmospheres and horror games, as this sort of level design is used quite commonly within horror games. So the blend of Bioshock DNA mixed in with the 1940s atmosphere and the theme park vibe makes for a pretty atmospheric experience. I think as far as the atmosphere is concerned here with Twisted Tower, it's really good. Now, the game is quite linear. This is what you expect when it comes to single-player first-person shooters. You're pretty much moving from room to room through connected hallways. Generally, you're looking for a switch to press in order to activate a staircase, or maybe a key in order to unlock the next room. There were a couple of hidden or optional rooms you could enter into, which Bioshock kind of does this in the way that each level is this sort of open-ish area with a few hidden nooks and crannies and rooms to explore with some good loot to find. And I was kind of hoping that Twisted Tower had a bit more emphasis on this in regards to the exploration, because one of the things about Bioshock is its world is so intriguing that you want to explore every last corner of it. It is hard to judge this aspect of Twisted Tower though, only because this is a demo showcasing the first level. Who knows, the other floors that you visit might have a bit more of an emphasis on exploration and optional paths to take, but I feel like even for a linear game, having more additional areas that aren't needed in order to progress the story helps really flesh out the world you're currently playing in. This isn't to say make the game a massive, wide open world environment or something like that, just add additional layers to it. However, one thing that I did notice upon doing 2 playthroughs of this was, for my first playthrough, using the blue key led me through a different route to ultimately find a switch to then open the door right here into the photo area. But on a different playthrough, using the blue key led me down a completely different route with some new areas to explore before I would eventually reach a different switch on the other side of the room that would activate the same door into the photo area. I really like this because it makes each playthrough potentially different on what routes you're taking. I hope that this is something that is consistent right the way through the game. There's also some doors that are marked with a red X that cannot be accessed until you've actually climbed to the top of the Twisted Tower, so there'll be some additional areas to go into and explore once you've finished the game. I don't know if they're going to be accessible via a new game plus, or to be a setup where you can return to previously explored areas, but this is really cool. I actually believe that this door that's closed here was rather the door that was activated upon using the blue key in my second playthrough, and the alternative route that I used in my first playthrough has now become the door with the red X. So I think it might be a thing where you can return to these doors once you've finished your first playthrough to experience the other routes that the game might make you automatically take in a completely different playthrough. That way you can see absolutely everything on one save file. Just like in Bioshock, how you scavenge areas to search containers for money or weapons or items, you do the same here in Twisted Tower. A lot of the things throughout the environments like barrels or cupboards can be searched for either currency, ammo, or food. In Bioshock, you had the medkits, which you could hold up to 9 in order to heal you. It's the same here in Twisted Tower, same kind of system, except instead of medkits, it's junk food like candy floss, popcorn, or soda, fitting that theme park theme. You also come across NPCs from time to time. I found this guy standing in one of the secret areas, trying his best to get tuberculosis, smoking 3 cigarettes at once, and for some reason, whenever I talk to him, he shits himself. That is like the wettest sounding fart video game sound effect I think I've ever heard. Hats off to the devs, because that genuinely grossed me out. Also, I don't know if there's any lore behind this. This is so random. And honestly, I hope there's more of this. Maybe this goes to show the pure insanity of the people that are in this place. I think it might have something to do with the fact that this guy is smoking 3 cigarettes at once. Cigarettes do have a laxative effect to them, so maybe stop smoking 3 cigarettes at once, huh, buddy? Now, looking at the gameplay, if you are familiar with the Bioshock games and how they work as first-person shooters, it's really no different here. Everything is hipfire, there is no aiming down the sights. It's not trying to be a super technical, fast-paced first-person shooter. It's pretty basic, and that's absolutely fine. Twisted Tower does have a slide mechanic, but really that's the only other extra thing it has beyond Bioshock. In the demo, you get to use the hammer, just as you would a wrench in Bioshock, a pistol, and a Tommy gun. And even the weapon designs are very reminiscent of Bioshock, especially the Tommy gun. Now, it doesn't seem as if there's going to be some kind of special ability system similar to plasmids. However, all of the weapons throughout Twisted Tower have alternate fires. These are basically like special uses for each of the weapons throughout the game. You do have to unlock these via the weapon upgrade vendors, which can be found throughout Twisted Tower. You'll have to scavenge the environment for tickets, which are this game's currency, in order to unlock different upgrades for your weapons, sort of like the power to the people weapon upgrade stations in Bioshock. The hammer's alternate fire allows you to charge it up for a double damage smack. The pistol can be charged up for a multi-shot, and the Tommy gun allows you to go into a bullet time mode and spray. Apparently there are 10 weapons throughout the game, but the demo only shows you 3, so there is going to be a good variety of weaponry here. The combat system is good though, and I think for anyone that is familiar with the older school 3D Realms games, this game is actually being published by 3D Realms, so it is a part of that family, then you'll probably feel right at home here. It definitely does feel like an old school shooter, and that's not a bad thing. Naturally though, I am making comparisons between this game to Bioshock, though I feel like that is a little bit unfair, as Irrational Games was a fully fledged studio with a lot of people working on that project, versus this game here where only 5 people are working on it. The only one thing I will say about the combat is it doesn't feel as weighty or punchy. The feedback upon, I don't know, shooting things doesn't feel as good as Bioshock, but just keeping in mind the scale of this project compared to something like Bioshock, it's good, all things considered. And also, this game is still in development. Now that the demo is public, all of the reviews and feedback that will be given via Steam will be taken into consideration towards polishing the game leading up to release. I really like this though. I think it has a lot of potential, and it definitely ticks a lot of those Bioshock boxes. I think that if you're trying to scratch that Bioshock itch, Twisted Tower is going to do exactly that. And don't just take my word for it. As I mentioned, the demo is now public, so go ahead and try it for yourself. However guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's video. Slap that like button as it helps me out a lot, and subscribe to the channel to keep up with everything going on here. A big thank you as always to my wonderful patrons. I appreciate the ongoing support. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and we'll talk again real soon.